My name's James Speer. I'm a systems consultant at Valuize, and welcome back to Valuize Your Gainsight Experience, a video series where we take a deep dive into Gainsight's features and functionalities to help you successfully adopt, implement, and maximize your Gainsight investment. Today's video is part 2 of a 2-part series where we'll be taking a look at implementing a rule to capture key moments in the value cycle for use in vertical reports. The value cycle involves identifying value that can be driven for your customer, providing that value, and finally highlighting the value that has been provided. Today, we're going to examine a simple example of the value cycle. Today, we're going to go ahead and take a look at a rule that is populating a custom object that we are utilizing for reporting. This rule is going to be taking specifically items from the call to action object. However, when you are creating your own value cycle metrics, you're going to want to talk to your leadership and come up with a strategy that is going to be based off of your value-based outcomes. And if you have any questions about value-based outcomes, we have an awesome guide for defining customer value that you can follow that can get you started. But the key metric that you're going to be looking for here is we're looking at call to action. You can also look at success plans. You might want to tie your value cycle to timeline entries. All of those are valid ways to develop this rule. But since we're just looking at a simple example, we'll go ahead and keep it to the one call to action object, and we'll be pulling a little bit from the success plan as well. So let's take a look at what fields we're taking out of the call to action right now. So what we're looking for are the CTA type, whether or not it's closed, and the status of that as well. We're taking a look at the success plan GSID, the success plan type, and the success plan status, as well as the active date, the close date. We're taking a look at the playbook name and the created and closed date for CTA as well. I've also included the company's health score as a potential piece of data that we might want to use in our dashboards, such as if we want to see companies that have below a certain threshold and call them at risk. And what we're filtering for, nothing here at the call to action level, but we have 4 different transformations. So this one, I've labeled it as success plan, value realization, and value messaging. We have success plan, value creation, CTA, value realization and value messaging, and CTA, value creation. These 2 are going to be very similar to our success plan, but let's take a look at what we're actually doing here. And we are pulling in most of our data from our first step, and we are also adding in 2 case filter pieces. So we are looking at risk. So this at risk is going to be looking at anything that has a score less than 65. We're going to go ahead and give that a positive true Boolean. There are many ways that you could be doing this. That was just what I had selected. And we are also capturing the value activity. So for this, we have 2 scenarios that we are filtering for. For the value realization, we are looking for it to be a success plan that is either this new success plan template or that it is the value experience. This is from an older version of Horizon Rules. You should be able to now also include in, which would allow us to select multiple success plan types. I know in an older version, this was not something that you could do. You had to do individual filters for each one. And we are also looking for that success plan status to be completed. Since this is value realization, we've decided that the value has been realized once the success plan has been closed out and completed. You could also include if you had pulled in from the timeline, another filtering criteria that just because the success plan is completed, that we would also need to see a timeline entry related to a specific objective on that success plan. Any of those are going to be very valuable. And again, that's something that you're going to want to determine with your leadership of how are we going to decide what the criteria or acceptance criteria is for value realization. For value messaging, we've decided that if a executive business review or quarterly business review has been completed with a CTA status of closed success, We're going to go ahead and call that value messaging. You might have a specific playbook that you're doing for value messaging, or you might have a timeline entry that is required. You could also be looking for an email task to be completed. All of those are going to be valid ways for you to capture that value messaging. And again, that's going to go back to what is best for your organization. And we'll take a look at our value creation step here on Success Plan. This is going to be very similar, where we have our at risk and our value activity. And all we're looking for here is that success plan has been created and is now in process. Since this is going to be a value creation, we've decided that these success plans are the way that we are creating value for our customers. So when a CSM creates the success plan, we're going to go ahead and give them credit for that value creation. And once they close the success plan, that's when they'll get that value realization. One of the steps that we also have in here is the filtering. So what we're looking for on this transformation is that these two success plan types, as well as the success plan status, have been captured. And that way we are only bringing in exactly what we want to see. And we'll see something similar over here for our call to action items. The fields are going to have the exact same at risk and value activity. It is very important that these cases be named the same in all 4 transformations, because we're going to be doing a union and we want to have that easily brought together. We'll look at the union in just a moment. But for the CTA, we're seeing that we're just looking for the playbook for that value messaging, and the CTA is in a closed success, as well as for the value realization, we're saying that expansion closed success is going to be a form of value realization. And what I want to kind of go back here to is that there can be many sources for value creation, value realization, and value messaging. And as an organization, you want to identify each one of those opportunities that your CSMs can forward with their customers. And once we've identified those, you would create this lovely spider-like diagram of bringing in objects where those value creation, messaging, and realization activities are coming from, filtering for them, and then creating that case where you are giving it a name. The union here is bringing those 2 data sets together, which is going to allow us to get those value activities where we only have creation on one side, but we have the value messaging and the value realization on the other. So now we have a full data set that is showing value creation and value realization and value messaging all in one space. And we do that one more time down here. And again, with a more robust look at how you're creating that value for your customers, this can get fairly complicated. So we will go ahead and move on to our action step, which is going to be fairly simple. We have 2 sets of criteria here, where one of them is looking at specifically for instances of value that have been created where there is no success plan related to it. And we want to make sure that that value activity field is not null. This is for an instance where they just created a CTA and we've considered that as an opportunity for them to create value. And it has to do with our action step here, because we're going to be using some of our GSIDs as a way to identify net new records. Okay, so we can see from this first step that we are using our CTA GSID as an identifier. And the reason we're doing that is to prevent us from missing a second opportunity of creating value for a customer. So each instance of value creation, value realization, and value messaging, we want to see that on a report as individual opportunities taken by a particular CSM. And we are using the company GSID as an identifier, as well as that value activity. This allows us to have a single CTA that might have value messaging, value creation, and value realization associated to it. And all 3 of those would be individual entries in our custom object, which is going to give us that reporting piece. This is also a lookup, which is what gives us our ability to do this drill down and have that CTA name actually go directly to the CTA. And we have the exact same setup on our second action. However, in this instance, we are looking for instances where the success plan is not null. And this allows us to look at objectives and use that success plan GSID as the identifier, while also still capturing that CTA GSID. If you are looking at a success plan that has the value creation, realization, and messaging all as steps, you may want to use the CTA lookup as its own identifier while also keeping the success plan identifier. This would allow you to have different entries with different CTA lookups for what is important for you to be reporting on. And we'll take a quick look at our data management here for the custom object. So we have our Gainsight fields as well as our activity date, activity lookup. We're also taking a look at the at-risk CTA lookup company ID, and this created by is whichever CSM created that value activity. Gainsight's rules and data management features can be effectively leveraged to reorganize data to highlight key value driving insights in your customer lifecycle. By identifying the value your customers derive from your product and successfully communicating that to key stakeholders, you can reduce churn and improve your net dollar retention. If you have any questions about this feature or want to learn more, check out the resources section of the Valuize website or contact our team of customer lifecycle and Gainsight experts.